This past month, and really leading all the way up to the launch of Redfall, there's been discussion about the state of Xbox. Phil Spencer did a widely publicized, arguably infamous interview essentially admitting Xbox gets a big fat silver medal next to PlayStation for the last generation in terms of sales, and a bronze if you feel like throwing Nintendo into that mix. Microsoft's long ago stopped publicly releasing hardware sales figures, and yeah, that's not a thing you do when the news is good, when the numbers are favorable compared to your competition. As a former Xbox fanboy, lifelong Xbox fan, literal Redmond, Washington resident, someone whose entire childhood and adult life has been shaded by Microsoft and Xbox services fueling my world in ways both social and economic, this feels like the end of something. Xbox, as a brand, as an entity in the social consciousness, has evolved substantially over the past decade, but has evolved as much over the last several years, even if it's less apparent on the surface. Less a game console like the PS5 and more a game streaming service akin to Netflix, Xbox has put immense work into shifting its business model. Credit where it's due. Xbox is the most fully featured, best networked, most connected ecosystem in gaming. I can play Halo Infinite on multiplayer on my phone with a controller housing all my save data in the cloud for when I'm back on the TV. My phone can be my Xbox, a tablet computer, a desktop, even just a Chrome browser can all play Xbox games at this point. Obviously provided you're paying for the full Xbox Live Ultimate subscription, but my point isn't that it's free, it's that it's all functional. It's all there. Xbox Live is the best it's ever been, and by far the best online service in gaming. It's also never been less essential. First, let's talk about the hardware. I love my Xbox One. It's a day one edition. I still have the controller and it's been in full working condition since I purchased it on November 22nd, 2013. A decade later, the dusty old box is still chugging along just fine, but functionally speaking, I've barely been gaming with my Xbox for several years at this point. I've owned 2 generations of desktop computers serving as my primary gaming centers since the Xbox was last called upon as my primary software device. No, at some point my gaming had all but completely migrated off of the Xbox One and had become an app center for my HD but neither smart nor 4K TV. It wasn't the smartest or the fastest device I owned anymore, but it still served a core functional purpose that fell within my own web of devices. The Xbox One, clunky and inelegant as it may be, had stuck around. But last fall, after 15 years of my old 1080p monster TV, the backlights went out and it was time to upgrade. I bought a 4K 42-inch smart TV for less than $300, and suddenly the Xbox One was obsolete. The TV ran at a higher native resolution compared to the chunky Xbox. The software was faster and generally the overall experience was smoother just running the streaming apps natively through the TV. Overnight, my Xbox had become relegated from a somewhat central software device in my media diet to something ineffective and relatively obsolete. With the exception of dabbling in a game installed to the Xbox One here and there, the console has largely been off ever since, going on 7 months now. But when I first got into Xbox, what hooked me and my friends line and sinker was Xbox Live. Playing multiplayer with and against friends was easier, smoother, and just better on Xbox than on any of its competitors once upon a time. A generation of gamers are largely nostalgic about Halo 2 because it pioneered a kind of socialized PvP experience that persists into the modern era. Halo 3 launched with a full theater mode to replay games, make gameplay videos, share clips, and generally made gaming as a hobby, as a social construct, a fixture long before the days of Steam or Discord. Xbox Live was, in many significant ways, the blueprint for the modern PvP social experience across all of gaming. But being the first to do something, even being the best at a time, doesn't guarantee success forever. What has really degraded and devalued the Xbox brand isn't so much a lack of games like people might tell you, but it's all the extra special value Xbox Live and the brand experience added to the product that has come out in the wash. What do I mean by that? Well, Discord, YouTube, Twitter, Reddit, gaming discourse and information is both hyper-centralized and completely decentralized all at once. Xbox Live used to be the dominant profile in gaming, but that mantle has comfortably, permanently shifted over to Steam and Discord. Adoption is the life and death of a social service, and while Game Pass has flourished as a tool for software/game sharing and streaming, the social aspects of Xbox Live have withered on the vine. Friends lists, clip sharing, updated posts, even apps like Twitter and Facebook, these features are largely being unused and are seen as secondary options to services like Discord that can do everything that the Xbox can and not just Xbox stuff. It's been years since I last sent anyone a message on Xbox or shared a clip or invited a friend to a game. All that stuff has migrated over to the Windows UI, Steam, or Discord. The backbone, the skeleton of all those features and services still very much exists, but at this point it's window shopping in an empty mall. All those years ago when Microsoft invested in the cloud, in Xbox Live as core gaming services, they made the right calls about where the technology was headed, but perhaps they underestimated how the ubiquity of the technology would undercut the need for their own services, especially to such a degree that it devalues Xbox hardware. There isn't a simple fix for this either. You can roll back some of that stuff people don't care about. The Twitter and Facebook apps, for example, have long since been retired, but the core Xbox Live experience is still central to the brand. Whether or not anyone is really using it is besides the point. It needs to be there. It's part of the sale. It's a visible facing aspect of the product the consumer is expecting. It's core to what people have expected from the service since its inception, and it's still technically an area where Xbox leads the marketplace. The reality has left Microsoft with an empty, dated social space rapidly aging itself out of relevance and eventually existence. So the discussion that Xbox has no games is at least partially true. That sentiment that Xbox has struggled over the last 2 years and really over the last 5 to deliver exclusive AAA titles is accurate, but it's ultimately a secondary problem to the real threat that has been eating away at the Xbox brand. The changing tides have taken the technology, the identity that made Xbox special, and washed it all away. And let's be real for a second. PlayStation 5, for a console this deep into its life cycle, also doesn't really have any games. Demon's Souls remake, Returnal, Horizon DLC, fine, yeah, sure, but it's hardly a case for $600. PlayStation continues to sell because Sony has marketed it as a games machine first and foremost. And as it turns out, people are still really like having that as a device that's separate from their phone or computer. You don't need to buy an Xbox. You already have a device that runs Xbox, but everyone has to buy a PlayStation to play PlayStation at all. And even if the technology is out of date on arrival, it is a console after all. The point of sale has kept Sony in the fight while Microsoft is withered on the vine. And while I'm looking into the future, I wonder if this just isn't going to continue. Starfield is coming, and even if it is, to quote Phil Spencer, an 11 out of 10, nobody is trading in their PS5 for an Xbox One. I could see Xbox ditching Xbox entirely and just becoming Game Pass at this point, ultimately ceasing to sell hardware at all and operating purely as a software and cloud-based platform. But that again feels like an investment that might not pay off in the short term. Microsoft is a technology company first and foremost, and the technology of the Xbox is still its saving grace. It's not that the Xbox cloud services aren't good. It very much is. It's that it hasn't paid back what it cost to build yet, and it might not. Part of me thinks that a business in a different position might have cut its losses and moved on at this point. But Microsoft is not most companies. Even if the Xbox brand is diminished, their investment is less in the brand than in the living room itself. The original Xbox was conceived as a living room device to the Microsoft's computer office nature, and while it has never really materialized in terms of functionality, in terms of marketing and business mindsets, this is the case. It has been successful. Even if the hardware itself is fading, the Xbox is a window to a market Microsoft very much desires. They are married to some version of this business model, to courting this audience, for better or worse. I see the Xbox brand limping for a long time in this frozen state. Even if Microsoft got its act together 100%, acquired Activision, set up 5 new AAA studios with perfect staff, and set themselves up for 10 exclusives, none of it would be materializing before 2025, if not 2027, if not 2030. 3 years is a very long time in this business. 5 years is an era, 7 years is an eternity. And if Microsoft wasn't one of the wealthiest tech entities on the planet, I would be writing the obituary, because Xbox wouldn't have that long by the grace of the pure corporate dollars that it takes for Xbox to survive. I ultimately canceled my Game Pass subscription the day before I wrote this script. I dabbled a bit in Redfall, but honestly there hasn't been a new release I've needed to play for a while, even if there have been some recent gems like Hi-Fi Rush and Ghostwire Tokyo. The PvP games I need in my regular diet, Halo Infinite MCC, I have paid versions of, and I don't need the subscription to access. I guess technically you do need Xbox Live Gold to at least play them online, even with the paid versions, but that's beside the point. Zelda is out, Pikmin will be out in a month. There's nothing in the Xbox pipeline until Starfield this fall, so even if I do pick back up the Ultimate subscription, and I do intend to at some point, I'm gonna be off it for more than a quarter of the year. And for someone like me who's been plugged into the infrastructure of Xbox completely, sold on all aspects of the service really since MechAssault back in 2006, feels like a big deal to finally pull the plug. So no, Xbox isn't dead. It doesn't have no games, but it is diminished. Not because Microsoft did anything wrong, to the contrary, because the ways in which Live revolutionized console gaming and the larger online experience, which was so paramount to the entire industry, adopted it and baked it into the cake. And now we wait for another Halo game that isn't announced, for Everwild, which might be vaporware, for Perfect Dark, which sounds ill-conceived on a core design level, for Microsoft to maybe buy Activision so Xbox can have the exact same library of games it does right now. Seems like we might be in for more of the same. Maybe I'm talking out of both sides of my mouth praising the existing Xbox Live offering while begging it to change. Maybe I'm just an old man without a TikTok account playing ancient games on my dated console like a neckbeard. But also, maybe Xbox, the Xbox I grew up with, the brand that I've stuck with, maybe that is not coming back. Not in the way I or anyone else want it to anyways.